You're listening to the Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives. And here is your host, Damon Frank.
And welcome back to the Recovered Life Show. Glad to be with you on this Wednesday, August 31st, 2022. It's a Wednesday, but it's not a normal Wednesday. My co-host, Kristina Dennis, joins me. And it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Kristina.
Oh, thank you, Damon Frank. Yes, I am aging backwards now. But if
22 again. This is just shocking to me.
Regular years, it would be my 53rd year. But because I'm aging backwards, I'm going to say about 30.
Well, happy birthday, Kristina Dennis,
Thank you.
Everybody from me and from everybody from the Recovered Life Show. You're a huge part of the community here and couldn't do it without you. So happy birthday. We hope you have something fun planned. I know you do.
I do.
You have something good planned.
Yes. My husband is surprising me. And so this is what I get to do today in regards to my recovery, which of course comes first, but we'll see. We're going to take a little day trip.
That is so great. You know what? We did the whole episode on the power of taking breaks. And
yes.
I think it's important. I think it's important that you take your birthday off and you enjoy your life. We didn't get sober to be miserable or to be workaholics, right? So you have to enjoy your life. And that's what it's all about. So happy birthday to you.
Yes, this is part of my self-love. We just did an episode on self-love. This is part of the action that I'm taking to celebrate my birthday. I know there are other people who share this day, but this really is the day that gets to be all about me.
So great. So great. Guys, we have got a great show talking about putting ourselves first here. We picked a topic that I think is really going to be uplifting for people who feel that maybe, you know what, little down in the dumps, maybe things aren't working the way that you want them to in sobriety. Hold tight. This next 20 to 30 minutes is going to be for you. I did want to thank the sponsor of the show. This episode of the Recovered Life Show is brought to you by Up-A-Loop, the active seating stool for people that want to stay moving, stimulate your brain, improve your posture, and increase your core strength today. It's time to get moving. Order your Up-A-Loop on Amazon or go to www.beyondsmart.com to find out more. That's www.beyondsmart.com. Check it out. Order an Up-A-Loop. Treat yourself and order an Up-A-Loop today for yourself.
Yes, I love this thing. I love this chair or whatever it's called, but it is so good. And you know, I have a son on the spectrum, so know a little bit about the neuroscience and how movement is incredibly important when you're turning on your brain. But, you know, I am ADHD adjacent, and this really helps me. I'm having a lot of fun.
I love that.
So. You like that?
I've never heard that. ADHD adjacent. I love that.
Yeah.
So are codependents that don't have alcohol problems alcoholic adjacent?
Yes.
Is that what we would call them? I love that.
I think so. Absolutely.
I love it. Guys, we have a great show for you today. The topic is don't let doubt downsize your life in sobriety. Oh, gosh, Kristina. Doubt is a killer, right?
It is. And you know, we've talked about this before, I think most recently in the self-love show, where there can be a lot of, listen, we're all learning new lives, right? We put down the alcohol. We're trying to learn how to do it. We didn't even imagine, I'll speak for me, I didn't even imagine what a life could look like without alcohol. I couldn't even visualize it until I met some other people who were abstaining from alcohol. So I had a lot of doubts when I came in, and putting down the drink was not the only thing that I had to do. I had to do more work and see where these doubts were hidden and where they were actually keeping me back and holding me down. So I love this topic because we all need to be reminded of this.
You know, we talk about doubt a lot in my Recovered Life Discussion Unstuck room on Thursdays on Clubhouse. And doubt is a killer for people because it immobilizes them not to take action. And I think one of the things I've determined with doubt is, I think spiritually, when we're talking about it all being a spiritual and emotional game, right? Recovery, long-term recovery is really, really a spiritual and emotional game, right? It's a thinking game. So one of the things I think that why doubt is such a killer in people making moves in their life and preventing people from having their best recovered life is there's a little bit of that spiritual lack of power there, right? Which we
Yes.
learn in 12-step groups, and we learn anyone comes in realizes they had lack of power, right? Because if you're
Right.
admitting you're an alcoholic or you have an addiction problem or you're codependent, what you're really saying is I have a lack of power in this area, right? And I
Right.
think doubt is when a lot of people see the possibility and they want to jump into it, but doubt keeps them from that because they say, you know what, at the end of the day, I just won't have the personal power enough to be able to enact this change.
Oh, I love the way you explain that because, it would be very easy. Doubt has its price to pay because doubt is really saying you don't have belief. And I know, through my personal coaching philosophy and what has learned from me, and through the years that I've been doing this, is that belief has to be a core function in your life. To believe that it can happen, to believe that that there are other people out there doing what you think you may be able to do. The next three are receiving, third is being aligned with your value system, and then the fourth is action. But if we are stuck in action, it may not be just because we like to procrastinate. It may be because we don't have a strong enough belief and we're doubting that it's even a possibility for us to be able to do this.
You're absolutely right. We talk about, you and I were having this personal conversation the other day, and I love this show. I love the Recovered Life discussions because we're talking as a group and we're really getting in there, right? But I like these shows that you and I do together because a lot of times we share what we're talking about with our
Mm-hmm.
peers that all have long-term sobriety or in coaching, right? Like what's going on.
Yes.
And we were talking last week about modernity, right? About
Mm.
not about a whole generation of people. And I would say that alcoholics fit into this, right? Whole group of
Absolutely.
people who can't find a center,
Yeah.
right? And doubt is, I think, one of those signs and signals that things might be going on with you, that you're unable to find a center. Because really in the here and now, everything is okay. Whether you get the job, don't get the job, upgrade your apartment, don't upgrade your apartment, you find that person you don't, right? Like a lot of this is a lot of this is choices and a lot of it's
Yes.
perspective, right?
Yes.
And doubt screws up with what is possible in your life. It really degrades this. And what I find is when I'm in doubt, I'm further from my center, right?
Yes.
And for me, it's about getting to the center because in the center, none of that stuff really matters. You know, none of that
Right.
stuff really matters. When I'm away from my center, that's what matters. What car I'm driving, where I live, do I have enough, not enoughness, all these feelings, doubt. Am I doing it right? I'm not doing it
Right.
right. Could I do it better? Why didn't I do it better? All that lives outside the center for me.
Oh, that's a really beautiful way to say it, and I think that for a lot of us, we come in with incredibly painful experiences that we've been drinking away in order to cope, and it's so good to be able to name what our true beliefs are and to get really honest with ourselves so that we can go in and have a little flexibility around them and start to believe that there are other options. There is, if you come in, it's like the law of attraction. I always think about the law of attraction that it's like the universe's algorithm. What you look at on social media, everybody understands that what you consume on social media, they're looking at how long you stay looking at something, they're looking at what you like, they serve you more of that back, right? So if doubt is part of your consumption habit, right? The universe is going to send you back more doubt, more areas in which to doubt. So I do believe that it is that direct connection to your center that allows you to keep looking at things that will bring you more belief, not less.
Correct. Correct. Because it's an energetic pattern. So I always say, look, if you're saying to your inner core, if your self dialogue is and your
Hmm.
dialogue with other people is that Doubt is all you see. You're doubting yourself. You're doubting every move that you make. What the universe says is, oh, you want doubt? Let me give you more doubt.
Yep.
Right. And it will give you that in which that you practice. And I think why the doubt is a killer part of it is, I know for me, a lot of this was codependency, right? Of the feeling of not getting it right, or of like, how do I fix this? I
Yes.
always tell the story of the plumbing incident that I had in the house where I was able to fix part of it, but I wasn't able to change out the hot water heater. And my friend said, hey, why are you a plumber? I didn't know you were a plumber.
Yes.
I thought you were into I didn't know you were into that. And he was being serious. And I was like, no, I'm not a plumber. And then he goes, well, why did you expect that you're able to do that? Right. And so on one hand, I see doubt is a self-protection mechanism.
Right.
Like, don't swim in that pond. There's an alligator in there. Right. Like,
yes.
maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. Right. Like, I don't know. Like, and there's power in not knowing. Right. So we learn there's power in not knowing. But doubt, I think, is the fungal part of that, which starts to take over your life, right? And starts to creep in to say that every move that you made isn't good. It wasn't the correct one. And it is either right or it's wrong. And this is the secret I learned on how to get out of doubt. I thought everything was very black and white. I thought I made the right move.
Yes.
I didn't make the right move. I signed the right client. I didn't sign the right client. I was a bit narcissistic in that. I thought it all had to do with me. The reality is most of life, I would say a good 80 to 90% of it has nothing to do with me, and isn't black or white. It's not good or bad. Sometimes it's good and bad simultaneously, right?
Absolutely.
We don't have control over that.
We live in the gray. When you're in recovery, you live in the gray. And that is not as comforting. We seek black and white thinking because we think things need to be concrete.
Yes, we do. We do think that they need to be concrete. I know,
Right.
Kristina, you cut out here a little bit, but so tell us about that. Why we think it needs to be concrete? Like, in your thought, like, how'd you get out of that? How'd you get out of that concrete thinking?
Well, first of all, I realized that my nervous system, that's a very human experience, that nobody really likes to live untethered. We really try to orient ourselves because we don't want to be lost. But I started tolerating feeling a little lost. I started tolerating that maybe there's another way this can go. Maybe something else will happen. And I started gathering evidence where it did happen all the time, that if I sought that center, God showed up, higher powers showed up, other people showed up to go ahead and fill in the blanks. A lot of times we hear this saying, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I don't really believe in that. I do think sometimes I've been given more than I can handle. But when that happens, I can learn to ask for help. I can learn to move.
This is good. I want to jump into some more solutions, hands-on solutions, if people are surrounded and sinking in doubt about what you can actually do, some steps, because I'd love it by the end of this episode is that people have some real tangible things that they can do to start getting out of doubt. And I know both you and I have practiced these things. So like I always say, we eat our own dog food. So more on that when we come back from this quick break. If you are newly sober, trying to get sober, or you've been sober for decades and are looking to take your sobriety to the next level, the Recovery Breakthrough 6-week transformation concierge coaching program might be right for you. Have Damon Frank and Kristina Dennis build a custom roadmap to get you on the path to getting what you really need. Receive hands-on concierge coaching and stay focused and productive with our daily check-ins. If you're ready to experience your recovery breakthrough and start the journey towards the transformation you deserve, book a free get-to-know-you call today and find out what is possible in your recovery. To find out more about Recovery Breakthrough and to book your free call, go to recoveredlife.us. That's recoveredlife.us.
You're listening to the Recovered Life Show.
So, Kristina, we've been talking about doubt, downsizing your life in sobriety. We promised some people when we came back, we were going to give some tips and tricks, some things that we've
Yes.
used with ourselves and our clients to not let doubt downsize your life in sobriety. You were talking about a technique, and I want you to follow up on that a little bit before the break. You were talking about a technique that I feel really works.
Mm-hmm. The part that understanding that we need to build up a tolerance and start speaking a language of all possibilities. When we notice that when we doubt, it's always because we believe there'll be a negative outcome, or because we want to take information from our history and orient ourselves, that building a tolerance to living in the now, living in the moment, and taking care of what you consume can help you combat doubt. First, you got to recognize it, though. And that's why we recover together. That's why Damon and I coach. That's why we recommend people to find mentors, because you need to be able to recognize that. Is it even true? The Katie Byron questions, or Byron Katie's questions, are awesome. Is it even true?
Yeah.
There is so much that we can do, but we got to know what we're thinking first. And when you feel like you're playing small, start with that conversation. I feel like I'm playing small. This is what my world seems to me. I'm starting to feel like there is no hope. And then you can start moving that information around and recognizing I need to expand the information that I have.
Yeah. And I think people, what happens is people outside of recovery would buy the car, go on the trip, do the extreme sports, right? We do everything when we were out there doing our stuff. We were not risk tolerant. Then we come in, we're super risk tolerant. We don't want we want to do anything, right, that doesn't seem, and this is very, very normal. And I think it shows that you value your recovery.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you, there's a couple of things that I've used that I think have been game changers here. One is George Snyder, who we've had on the show a lot. He was a huge person at the very beginning of Recovered Life. We had him on a lot, life and business strategist. And, one of the things that he talks about is says who that it's going to happen like this, right? And when you start asking who's saying this, when you start talking back to yourself, challenge those thoughts. Who's saying this?
Right.
Whose true. Idea is this? Like, really confront it. Whose idea is this, that this isn't going to work out? That if I take this new job, that's a little challenging, this isn't going to work. Who's saying this? And
it's such
what
a good
you
technique.
find back is that it'll tell you. It'll tell you, it's like, oh, your uncle's telling you this, who said you'd never do it. Or, this is an old belief that's telling you this. This is because you had a situation when you were 22 that didn't work out, right? Like, it will tell you. It's shocking. It will tell you. And then it's just like, well, that's not true. Do I want to guide my life through something that happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago? I don't, right? So I think this whole idea of asking who's saying this is huge. It's a game changer for me.
Oh, that reminds me of another one of my favorite, and I think a lot of addicts, is this perfectionism, is actually boiling it down to ask yourself the question, well, what is perfect? And who says that's perfect? And that just reminds me so much of using that technique when we're doubting, because a lot of times we procrastinate because we want things to be perfect, or we believe that we're not worthy of what it is that we want.
And I think, one of the other things, Kristina, if doubt is downsizing your life in sobriety, I think you need to just take a page out of a business book. And I got this from working in business, which is I would actually write down. So a lot of the doubts that I hear is, hey, I don't want to take that job, or I don't want to get in that relationship because it might fail, right? And usually doubt, you can identify doubt versus risk of it's some emotional feeling, right, to it. And what I say is I write that down. Hey, I don't want to, like I had a friend who really wanted a significant other, but did not want to date, was very afraid to date. So what we did is we just wrote that down. Okay, what are you actually afraid of, right?
Right.
This is what I'm afraid of. Okay. And then the next part of that is, what's the worst that can happen? The absolute worst. Write it down. And I know that that seems counterintuitive, but when you write it down, you look at it. And then the third question I said is like, can I live with that? And, like with this friend that we had, he wrote down, he says, well, the worst case scenario is I go out on a date and it's awkward and it doesn't work well. And I said, well, then what happens? He's like, I go home. Okay. Well, can you live with that? Like, if the worst scenario happened for you, could you live with that? He's like, yeah. And then I said, well, then how often does the worst scenario happen? It's typically not the best scenario, and it's
No.
not the worst. It's somewhere in the middle. So likely, statistically, it's going to be somewhere in the middle. You'll go on a date. It'll be okay. Maybe you'll see them again. Maybe you won't. Can you live with that? Yes, of course I can live with that. Okay, well then this is nothing that you have to have self-doubt over. Right?
Right.
The risk isn't low. We build up in our mind that this risk tolerance is going to be so big, Kristina, that it's going to be so crushing. But the reality is, rarely does the worst case scenario happen. It's somewhere in the middle.
Absolutely.
And even if the worst case scenario happens, hey, go for the job. What's the worst that happens? You get fired. Okay, can you live with that? And many people are like, yeah, I'll just go out and get another job. Okay, then you don't have to live in self-doubt. There is no right and wrong. But if the worst case scenario happens, you're not going to die.
Yes. Oh, so good. Very wise strategy. And I think I mean, when we come down to understanding what our brain is saying, what it actually is saying, identifying the feelings, we do an inventory on them, we look at all of the possibilities, we will be able to do things. I also think it's really important to have an example of somebody that has succeeded. So
Absolutely.
your brain can see that. You can see, oh, they had ups and downs. The worst happened sometimes, they still stayed there. The best thing happened sometimes, they still stayed. There is a lot of research that says the harder it is, the more worth it, more
Absolutely.
value
Well,
it has.
that's why, most of the work that I do is accountability coaching, right? We've decided, what do you want? And then how are you going to go get that, right? How are we going to
Right?
manifest that in our lives? And a lot of it is then, okay, then we got to do the work, right? And we
Yes.
got to make ourselves accountable for doing the work. I
Right.
think, one of the pages, another thing that I pulled out of, my business career is, it's really a consciousness game. I always say sobriety is a consciousness game, but with doubt, it is too. You have to train yourself to not be pie in the sky looking for the best case scenario, but
Right.
not looking for the worst case scenario. This is interesting because, when I've been around people who have been very, very, very successful in their
Mhm.
chosen fields and in life, right? It might just be raising a kid or having a good home, right? It doesn't have to be some major business feat or sports feat or anything. It could just be something very simple, right? That's amazing. But one of the things I notice is that the thinking of people that are like that, the people that I look up to, they don't look for the negatives first. They
Right.
look to see what's possible first. And then they look to see if their efforts are worth what's possible. What I find is that people that are stuck in self-doubt and people that can't achieve say, I'd like to open a business. I think I'm really good at making frozen yogurt or whatever, right? And then the next dialogue is every reason they can't do that. They don't have
Sure.
enough money. That people always go to money. They don't have money and they don't have time. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have the resources. People that are not in that consciousness, that are in the opposite consciousness, look at, hey, I'd like to create, I'm really good at creating yogurt. Maybe I'll create a business out of this. Okay, what's in my life now that I could use in which to optimize, right?
Mhm.
This idea that I have. They don't look at the lack and build their visions and dreams and life around the lack. They look at what's possible now in the here and now. That's why you see all these great people in recovery. They get it. And they're like, I was always really good at we know these stories of people. It's like, man, I
Yes.
was always really good at plumbing or making fried chicken or barbecuing or whatever. And they make these huge successful businesses because it was always in their sphere of
Mhm.
consciousness in the here and now. It was always there anyway, right? They're just waking up to the fact. But if you're always looking for the worst case scenario, you're always looking for the negative outcome, you're always going to find it, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. What you focus on gets bigger. And I think that it's important to also say that, one of the things that makes Damon and I such a good team is because we each bring, our actions to the person. It's very hard for somebody to see it within themselves, and it takes all of the approaches to kind of get there. I like don't let doubt downsize your life in sobriety, because it gives us some language and some clues to figure out what do we need to do to have a breakthrough.
Well, this is why we created Recovery Breakthrough, Christina, was exactly because we saw people that had doubt downsizing their life in sobriety, right? And
Hmm.
we wanted something that's like, what, look, I look back, and I know you do too. I look back on periods of my sobriety and go, man, like I struggled with that way too long. Like
Yes.
this was something I could have fixed in a couple of weeks. This
Right.
wasn't something that I needed to take 3 years to figure out, right? But the
Yes.
reality is, if you don't know what you don't know, that's why I love Recovery Breakthrough is so exciting for me, is because people are having massive changes in their recovery in 2 weeks. They come in hating
Exactly.
being sober, hating the process. In 2 weeks, they come out of that looking at things differently. I think it just takes a shift in perspective, but sometimes you need a guide to get there. Sometimes you have to be your own guide, you know,
Right.
and
Right.
how you be your own guide is stop looking at all the reasons why it won't work out. Now, you might write everything down and you might say, is it worth that? Is it worth the effort? And it might say, you know what? I like making fried chicken, but it's not worth the effort for me to do that. I'm
Sure.
happy with what I'm doing, right? That's fine too, but don't let doubt paralyze you.
Well, you doubt is not a strategy. A risk
No.
assessment plan is. And that's why you have to have help moving forward. Like you said, you can do it on your own, but it might take you a lot longer. And I think that is one of the reasons why Recovered Life was created, because we want to talk about these things. We want people to have these big, beautiful lives.
And it's not just, Christina, people that are 1 week sober, 1 year sober.
Mm-mm.
Look,
No.
many of the people we work with are, they're 20 years sober, 30 years sober. They've had, they're in a place where doubt has capsized their life. It's totally
Yes.
downsized it, right? So if this is you, if you're listening to it, don't struggle, right? Like get around some people that could help you. You don't have to go to Christina and I. Definitely, we're not saying that, but you need to go to someone, some peer group, something that's going to help you really move forward with this. You don't want to be crippled by doubt your entire life. Christina,
So, so true.
great show.
Thank
Great show
you. It
today.
was
And amazing, and happy birthday.
Thank you. And I just want to thank Damon for letting me be part of this, and everybody who's on this journey. What a gift Recovered Life has been to me. So I appreciate you all.
Everybody go out and live your best recovered life. We're going to see you on the next episode. Make sure to check out the Recovered Life discussions and join us on Clubhouse. Be part of it. Be part of the discussion. Join us there. You can find out all about it just by going to recoveredlife.us. We'll see you there, guys.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.